And hello again, and here we are back in my garage where I'm going to pose you a question. Now, wouldn't it be nice if your bike would never need to have an MOT ever again? And also, wouldn't it be nice if that bike would have free road tax forever going into the future? Well, it can do if it's more than 40 years old, because if it is, it can be reclassified by the DVLA as being an historic vehicle, at which point no more MOTs and free road tax forever. So that's pretty good news, isn't it? Now, I do own a few bikes that are more than 40 years old, so I've just gone through the process for the first of those bikes, and I found out how it works. So, what you have to do is, first of all, go off to the post office and pick up one of these things, a form V112, Declaration of Exemption from MOT. You fill it in, vehicle registration number, your full name, sign it, and put a little category code in here. Now the categories are quite interesting, but the one you want is the one on the back that says more than 40 years old, which I believe is an R. But it's quite funny to see how many there are. There are tractors, track lane vehicles, hackney carriages, trolleys, trams, all kinds of things, but we want the one for more than 40 years old. So once you've done that, you take it along to a post office along with your V5, and they'll check it online to make sure it's got insurance and so on. If it has, you'll then get the bike taxed, assuming it needs to be taxed, and that'll be at zero cost. Great news. They'll then have you fill in a part of the V5 which says historic vehicle. She'll then, or he, at the counter will then rip the V5 in half. She'll keep half and you'll keep the other half, and then that half is sent off to the DVLA, where eventually you'll get a new V5 sent back to you, which is now classifying the bike or vehicle as an historic vehicle. All good. So that's fantastic news. What I wasn't sure about though was, does it need to be MOT'd before you do all this? Does it have to have a current MOT before they'll do this for you? Turns out it doesn't have to have, no. All it needs is to be insured. If it's insured but no MOT, you can still do this, you can still get it taxed, and of course after that it doesn't need an MOT anymore anyway, which is great news. And I was quite surprised that the government agreed to this, because it seems a bit generous for the government to give out freebies like this. But it turns out the argument was, well, the vast majority of vehicles that are more than 40 years old are owned by enthusiasts who take care of the vehicles. You know, they don't go out in rusty rust buckets with no brakes and all kinds of problems and safety problems, so it's not really an issue. And sure enough, everybody I know who owns an old bike, you know, more than 40 years old, looks after it. They've got good tyres, good chains, everything works okay, so it's not really an issue. Oh, and this 40-year rule is a rolling 40 years, and so at the moment it's set to 84, but next year it'll be set to 85 and 86 and so on. So if you've got a bike that's maybe built in 85, 86, it'll soon be included in this 40-year rule, and then you can get your bike declared for exemption from MOT and free road tax forever. So that's well worth having. So that's how it's done. Pretty straightforward. You just have to get yourself a V112. Now, the small post office I went to first didn't have these, but I then went on to a bigger post office where they had a few of them, but they only let me have one, and I want about 6. So I got them photocopied on both sides, and that's not a problem. This form is actually just looked at by the person behind the counter at the post office. He or she checks it's all okay and you've signed it, and that's it. You know, it doesn't get sent back to the DVLA as far as I know. So that's how it's done. That's how you save yourself a bit of money and a lot of time, never having to have an MOT ever again, and never having to pay road tax ever again. So anyway, that's it. So thanks for watching, and cheers.